So, Terry, tell us about how does the tempo trainer help for people who maybe are a little bit more efficient, or maybe there's going to be a lot of swimmers out there and coaches who have already feel like they perform well in a triathlon swim or an open water swim, at least as far as not feeling incredibly stressed. But
Yeah,
tempo trainer
yeah.
has another purpose that you use it for a lot.
Right. So far we've mostly talked about it as a biofeedback device, right?
Yep.
And so let's talk about it as a neuromuscular imprinting device. And so I see it as having two primary values. If you are an inefficient swimmer, and by inefficient I mean your stroke length is too short, you're not traveling enough at a decent level of efficiency, you should travel over half your height, basically. If you're traveling less than half your height, you're moving water. And so you should travel over half your height approximately on each stroke. And so a lot of people cannot do that, and I've had countless experiences with people where I put the tempo trainer on them, even without teaching them TI skills. I just put the tempo trainer on them, and we gradually slowed the tempo down, and somewhere in the range of 1.5 to 1.6, maybe 1.7 seconds per stroke, they found themselves swimming effortlessly, not even having tried to do so. They found themselves swimming in that range of traveling at least half their height. All right, so they had a kinesthetic experience of what it feels like to have the right stroke length, and that's better than never having had it before. And all they had to do was press the right button on their tempo trainer. So I kind of refer to that as voodoo efficiency. Just press the right button and it happens. And so that's the one side, but I've already got plenty of stroke length. So what do I do with the tempo trainer? Well, I often press the right button to wire in stroke length a little bit more. But if I'm preparing for a race, then I'm pressing the left button on the tempo trainer and bringing my tempo down to 1 stroke per second, or 1 second per stroke, or a little bit faster than that, in the range between, in my case, if I'm going to race 1 mile to 2 mile in open water, I'm going to swim in the 0.9 to 0.95 seconds per stroke rate. And so what I'm doing with the tempo trainer is putting it close to that range and counting my strokes to make sure I do what Mike said Michael Phelps did in winning the 200 butterfly, which is not shorten my stroke as I get toward my racing rate. So I know precisely whether I'm practicing efficiency at speed or whether I'm just spinning my arms. And so the tempo trainer is incredibly invaluable for that side of things too.
Yeah. So you mentioned, it's really interesting, you mentioned an emotional side of it, a biofeedback tool of the tempo trainer.
Right.
You mentioned press the right button, which means slowing the tempo down help increase stroke length because you've got more time. And then the left button increases the tempo, so you can start practicing race speeds while maintaining what you've done so far.
Yeah,
so,
and it's just the opposite of running. As Bobby said, to go faster, you want to give up stride length and increase rate. Well, in swimming, you want to maintain length. And maybe you sacrifice a little bit of rate, but you don't really want to be trying to increase your rate, because then your length is going to go to pot entirely if you're trying to increase rate.
We talked about biofeedback, Suzanne, and one of the things that's come up in my many conversations with Terry, and I'd be interested in your thoughts about it, Bobby, is at some level swimming is almost a feed-forward sport where you have to learn to impose a motor pattern on yourself and learn how to maintain that motor pattern through some of the things Terry's talking about. Where with running and cycling, you have to learn to read the feedback from your body. How hard am I breathing? Are my legs burning? Does this hurt? Does that hurt? Is my rhythm deteriorating? And so forth. And so I think that's, you talk about emotional, the emotional burden or the emotional efficiency. You talk about the metabolic efficiency, but I think there are almost two very different cognitive strategies. One of almost feed forward, and one of almost feedback, and you need some of both in swimming and running. But I think swimming is much more feed-forward driven, and running is much more feedback driven.
I would completely agree, because I've done quite a bit of experimentation with forms of metronomes, and I found that stride rate or cadence is as a result of a number of factors rather than being created by the rhythm. So, you know, I pay very close attention to stride rate and cadence, and I have all my runners wear the foot pod with the accelerometer, and I gather all their cadence data, but I don't use a metronome as much anymore, because I'm looking at why the stride rate is either too high or too low, and in most cases it's too low.
So, Seton, do you have one of these little magical devices that we've been talking about? This is sort of like the Homer Simpson referring to pork as the magical meat. You know, does anybody know that? You know, bacon, pork chops, thinking that you can get everything from one animal. So this is a little magical device.
Yeah, I mean, let's not overstate what this is. It's a waterproof metronome. Okay.
Okay.
It's. I don't know. Can you guys hear this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pull it back a little bit. Pull it back. We can see it better if you pull it back.
That's perfect.
Right there. Good. Good. Right there.
There we go. So, as you guys know, this is not like a Garmin. This is as simple as it gets. You turn it on, and like we've been talking about, push one button to make the pace faster, one button to make the pace slower.
Right there, you can see the right button and you can see the left button on the bottom, and that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So, where am I going? Let me see here.
That was a little faster.
Yeah, well, I'll go super fast just to get my point across. Because this is how fast we swim, right?
No, we press those buttons slowly, actually. Yeah, that would be a crazy fast pace.
I know that. But one thing I do want to reiterate is this is not just a device for swimming either. A couple years ago, a gal contacted me, a pro. She needed one of these overnighted to Kona. And she ended up that year, this was several years ago, and I've got second pro female in Kona, and she needed this for the run. Now, these are illegal. I know we talked about racing with these. These are not allowed to be used. I don't know why, but they're not, because it's a pacing device. She didn't. I don't think she raced with it. She might have hidden it under her cap for all I know, but she used it, and I think she told me she used it for the run to get ready for the run. So it's a multi-use device. It'll last you a long time until you drop it and crush it, but it's a good device.
Seton, perhaps you can just explain where it gets attached for people that don't know anything about it.
Oh yeah, so it comes. It comes with a clip, if you can see right there. And the clip, you can clip it on your goggle strap, underneath your cap, on your hat. You pretty much want it near kind of your ear so you can hear it.
Yeah. I take it out of the clip and put it under my cap, right on my temple, right next to my ear.
Yeah.
With the face out, so I can press the buttons through my cap.
Right. Spencer, if you're listening in, could you paste the link there where people can get these devices at TriSports? They're the two devices we talked about, the Garmin 620 and the Tempo Trainer for anyone who's interested